Here we go. Basil. This is a character that I have had a problem with approaching with an analysis. Why? There's literally so much on him to talk about. You should literally be able to babble on for days about him. And to that, I say fair enough. But the thing with Basil is that I feel as if a lot of him is told throughout this story by the game itself. And it almost feels like a cop-out on doing an analysis on him. I'm gonna do it anyway, though. The first time we see Basil is in the Headspace version of him. In fact, there is more or less a warning, or more likely a sign, that Basil and Marie will not show up on screen as much as the others, because of the fact that they are the side characters. Which is actually rather interesting to me, because if you think about it, the characters you travel with and are dealt with as main side characters actually aren't what the story is about. They're more or less there for the reactions to the situations, and honestly, something that grounds Sunny in the end. Their roles are important, of course, and they are important to the plot of the story. But it's quite easy to say that this story is about Sunny, Marie, and Basil. Focused on them, at least. Now, Basil is an interesting character. Mostly because we hardly see him in the game compared to the others. He's there quite often and is definitely a main character, but he's strangely absent throughout the entirety of the game. In the beginning parts of the game, we are in the headspace with Basil and the others. We are quickly attuned to the idea of Basil being more timid and shy than the others around him. He's gentle and he's caring. We learn that he takes photos of his friends to convey memories of the moments that they are sharing with each other. And this becomes a major part of the game's storytelling. As we make our way to Basil's house, we begin to see a little bit more of his personality as he shows us his plants that he has in his gardens? Little plot areas? Yeah, I don't know. The interesting thing about this isn't the flowers themselves, or the fact that they're there. Although it is rather interesting to see Basil's hobbies and what he enjoys to do in his free time. No, what's interesting is the fact that the plants he has planted all represent or stand for his friends. He didn't plant those plants just to plant the plants. That was a lot of plants. He plants them because it's his way of showing love, along with taking photos of his friends. When we finally arrive at Basil's house, we go in, look at the photos, you know, the usual. Then Basil drops a photo, and this is the first indicator that something is wrong. His eyes go bloodshot, and the screen gets shaky. Marie. Then everything cuts off. When we return to the house, there's something in the middle of what seems to be a hole in the floor. It promptly disappears and your friends don't seem to think anything of it. But Basil's missing. This is something that I want to pause on quickly. Basil is the only other one who knows about Marie's death. The others know that she died. But he's the one that knows the truth about it. And Headspace is Sunny's escape from that. Basil goes missing because he's the only one to know. He's the only one holding that secret with Sunny. That takes him out of the picture because Sunny wants to dissociate. He doesn't want to accept what he's done and have to come to terms with it. He can't. He can't. Long story short, we spend the rest of the game searching for Basil. The interesting thing about this is the fact that when we wake up and return to real life, we soon see Basil being bullied by Aubrey and co. Compared to when we saw him last, he's a lot more jittery and anxious looking. He's surprised to see Sunny out and about and constantly seems on edge. There are bags under his eyes, and there's anxiety that emanates from him and almost infects you whenever you interact with him. In fact, he seems to be actively avoiding hanging out with you and hides every chance he gets. The guilt and the fear gnawing away at him every chance it gets. It definitely doesn't help when you remember that his grandmother hasn't been doing well anyway, along with the fact that his parents are absent, and rather a stand-in caretaker is the only adult he has around that is even able to communicate with him. Even worse, we learn that his grandmother is raced to the hospital and is placed into intensive care. That alone is enough to cause someone to go silent. But if you take that into consideration, you have to realize that it is not just these events piling up on Basil. No. Even though that is awful, this is not the worst thing that Basil has experienced. Not only is his grandmother on death's row, but he also watched his best friend push his sister down the stairs. He experienced that and had to keep it a secret all of these years. He was so horrified. His best friend would never do that, right? He couldn't. It couldn't have been Sunny. He couldn't believe it. So instead, he divided the blame as something behind Sunny. Now, I'm not sure how the fandom feels about this whole thing, but I perceive something as a manifestation of their guilt and their fear, a dissociation that never leaves and is always hanging over them. Something is a haunting feeling that won't let them be. When you confront Basil in his bedroom at the end of the game, one of the endings, you can clearly see that he's going through it. He is fighting to keep himself sane and keep himself from taking his own life. Something that had been a reoccurring theme on the game was Sunny leaving Basil behind, leaving him to deal with the trauma on his own. The two of them made a decision that would forever affect them. Not only did Sunny kill Marie, Basil saw it and told Sunny to lie, to fake Marie's death as a suicide as they hang her by a jump rope from a tree. Basil begins to blame himself for this because he was the one who suggested it, and because it was his idea, it was fully his fault. Not only that, he also learns that Sunny is going to be leaving him. Again. He's leaving him with this guilt and this overbearing trauma. He's running away and leaving Basil with a problem that shouldn't be his in the first place. I can imagine some people saying that Basil was overreacting, but something that I believe that this game does really, really well is indicate and represent the manifestations and representations of depression and guilt. It's not something that is easy to explain, and can often be written off as something people choose to be like. But it can be suffocating and almost impossible to escape from. Sometimes you can't get through it by yourself. That's what we see in Basil's case. If you don't end up helping Basil and leave him to his own devices, eventually the grief and guilt overwhelm him, and he takes his own life. It shows that this was never just something that could have been gotten over. Can you imagine watching your best friend push their sibling down the stairs? What that would do to you? Especially as a kid. You're now traumatized for life. It will always be there in your subconscious. Even if you end up being able to forgive yourself, it's something that you will never be able to fully escape from. It's such a scary thought. Think your life could be changed so quickly, that it could be ruined so easily, that anything can really happen. If you don't hide it, you'll get in trouble. But if you do hide it, you'll be trapped with it for eternity and be caught in these endless webs of lies and guilt and sorrow. In order for others to forgive you, you have to be willing to forgive yourself. And I think that that is something Basil will never be able to fully do, no matter how hard he tries. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you guys all enjoyed that video. I don't really have any news right now. I think I'm going to be doing a little video in between these ones. I'm not sure what the topic's gonna be yet, but I have a few ideas. So with that being said, I hope you all enjoyed it, and I will see you all in the next video. Please make sure to like and subscribe.